Hey y'all, what's up? So on today's video, I will be walking you through step one of my pallet bed build, which is picking out your pallets. And I'll be doing it in form of a story time today because it was quite the experience, me getting my pallets. So stay tuned. Alright, so let me start this story. So one fateful morning in August, I decided that, you know what, today I am going to start this pallet bed build. Like, it's been taking way too long and I've been thinking about it for way too long. Let me just start it, right? So I ended up, I went for a run that morning with the sole purpose of going to scout places that I could pick up my pallet bed. And in my mind, I was like, okay, you know what? Like, I could just put them in my car and that'll be done. Like, I could do multiple trips that morning. So I ended up going for my run, and I was so distracted because I was just like looking for, like, actually purposefully looking for pallets at different stores around my house. And when I went for my run that morning, I found like I found a store that had like 4 pallets. And in my mind, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I need to come back. I ended up just like running for like 15 minutes and then running back home because I was like, I'm going to go pick those pallets before anyone else gets them. So ended up coming back home, picking up my car, and then I went to, mind you, I think I had a meeting that morning at 10, and I usually go for my runs around like 8:39. So I ended up just hopping in my car and then like driving to the place that I saw that first pallet. I was like, okay, no one's there, let me go look for other places. So I like drive to this shopping complex close to my house, and I went like behind the shopping complex and I saw some pallets and I was so excited. Let me continue. So I was so excited that like I've seen these pallets. I've seen, like, I think that store had like 2, and the other place that I found had 6, right? And I needed 8. So before I get into, like, you know, where I picked up the pallet and that whole story, one thing to mention and one thing that's very important is make sure you measure like where the pallet is going to be, because all pallets are different sizes, right? So I ended up taking a measuring tape from my, had I even bought the measuring tape at that time? I think so. I'm not sure, but I think I had a measuring tape at that time. So I think I measured the I measured the width and length of my, you know, where I I measured the width and the length of where I wanted the pallets, like the bed, to sit in my room, and also measured took the measuring tape when I was going, right? So when I got to that place, I was so excited. I have a sleeping bag at the back of my car, and mind you, I drive a sedan, so I have a small car, but my back seats kind of fall a little bit so that, like, you know, stuff can go in there. So my plan was like, you know what, before my meeting at 10, these places are like 2-3 minutes away from my house. I can just stuff them in my car, put my sleeping bag in the trunk, stuff them in my car, and then drive them home. So I pick up the first pallet, and mind you, I was probably looking hella crazy that morning because driving school is also around that area. So people were probably looking at me like, why is this girl like picking out wood at the back of this store? I just thought it was so sketchy, and the store had security cameras at the back of the store. So I'm like, oh my gosh, if these people watch the security camera, they'll probably think I'm like low-key cuckoo. So anyways, I tried to put it in my trunk. It didn't fit. I was like, oh my god, like, is this actually happening? And then I was like, okay, you know what, I'm determined today, this is going to happen today. I ended up now moving my seat forward, and I was like, I'm going to try and stuff it in my back seat. It didn't enter. I was like, Jesus Christ, like, is this really happening? Like, I really want to do this project. I really want to do it, right? So I was like, okay, you know what, my next plan, when it didn't fit in my car, was some of my friends were also moving. So I was like, okay, maybe I can get a U-Haul, and I can just like pay for 1 hour, do a quick trip. And my friend also needed to buy a bed from IKEA, so my plan was we'll go get the U-Haul together, pay, like, split the cost. She'll pick up my bed from IKEA, I'll go pick up my pallets and go return the U-Haul, right? So I made it in time for my meeting that morning at 10. So after my meeting, I had called my friend and I was like, okay, or I think before my meeting, I called my friends. I was like, can this plan work? And they were like, yeah, okay, you know what, let's go to IKEA. Go to IKEA for 11. My friend had a meeting at 2. I had a meeting at 3, I think. So roughly we had to be at IKEA, out of IKEA at 2, right? So I ended up picking my friends. I ended up picking up my friends at 11. It took us like 20 minutes to get to IKEA. We got to IKEA, and mind you, I've only been to IKEA one time, and it wasn't when the one in Toronto. So this is like a whole new experience for my friends and I, right? We don't know the layout of the land. We've never been there before. So our plan of being at IKEA till 2 o'clock was basically trash, because before you walk around IKEA, and like they had to also pick out like things that they liked and they saw, right? And my friend doesn't even know what kind of bed she likes, or you know what kind of bed she wanted. So she was also scouting for that as well. Almost our time finished at 2 o'clock. We had to leave. So I was like, oh well, there goes my plan for, like, you know, splitting the cost of the U-Haul, because U-Hauls are expensive. They're like $40-something, right? And honestly, I was so determined, because if it can't fit in my car, how am I supposed to build this pallet bed? So I ended up after my meeting going to rent this U-Haul for an hour, and I had other things to do that day. I can't remember what exactly, so I only had an hour to spare out of my day, or in the evening time. So I ended up, like, once I got home after my meeting, I even like rushed my meeting because this thing was just in my brain. So 4 o'clock I went, rented a U-Haul, cost me a ton of money. Then I went to go start picking up all the pallets that I've seen around basically my house area. Boy, oh boy, that was like the toughest part, because I went to the first place that I saw the pallets, and obviously, like, at this time the stores were already open, so I kind of had to take permission. Like, honestly, if I went in the morning, I would have just picked it up because no one was there, right? So I ended up going to the store and I was like, oh, I see these pallets outside, like, can I just take them? And the guy was like, well, we sell our pallets for $2 a pallet, which I think is a lie, but honestly, homeboy was trying to make his money. I can't knock his hustle. So I got 4 pallets from them, and they cost me it cost me $8. So I ended up buying the 4 pallets from them, and I went back to the same the store I went to first in the morning with my car, and I saw, I think, 1 or 2 pallets there. I can't remember. I just saw pallets there, and then I have another shopping complex by my house, like a little mall by my house. So I went behind there, and I also saw some, like, those ones had like really, really nice pallets, man. So I went there and I basically told them, like, I knocked at their back door and I was like, well, can I have your pallets? And they're like, yeah, take it for free. So I only paid for the 4, and then I got the other ones for free. So I go, and I imagine it's just me, like, I carry, and these pallets are heavy. I carried these pallets by myself, 8 of them, into the U-Haul, and I also had to drive them home and then offload them into my backyard. So I just messaged my landlord and I was like, yo, like, I'm putting pallets in the backyard, like, don't fret or anything, you know. So I ended up coming back home, offloading all 8 pallets and mind you, these things are like maybe 50 to 60 pounds each. I offloaded them in my backyard, and I now went to go and return the U-Haul back to the U-Haul place. So honestly, like, guys, like, if you're thinking of making a pallet bed, look for somebody that has a truck or like a Jeep that you can use rather than renting a U-Haul, because that was, I think, total in that day I spent like $60 that I didn't think I was gonna spend. These are the things Pinterest doesn't tell you, honestly. but overall though it was a fun experience, like just driving around and like scouting for pallets and whatnot. And oh my gosh, you guys, another thing to note is that like all pallets are different. So while you're also looking at measurements, also make sure you don't pick out, and I will say this in my second video, but make sure you don't pick out pallets that are colored. You have to do your research. Like my sister freaked me out because she's like, you don't want to put a pallet in your house and then you not be living with bed bugs and insects for a year. So she made me do like a whole research about like, you know, how to clean the pallets. I'll show you in the next video. But but I feel like ideal places you should look for pallets are like Home Depot or like furniture stores, not really grocery stores, because grocery stores usually have like they'll be transporting chemicals sometimes, right? So alright y'all, so I hope you enjoyed that video. So this was just part one of my pallet bed build, which I decided to do a story time for, and just stay tuned for the whole process. I'm sure you guys would enjoy it. It was a stressful and long process, but it was great. So make sure you like and share for more content like this. Bye.